Guys, so we talked about the Deshaun Watson situation. We did talk about Dak Prescott's new contract, so it is time to get into my NFL Week 1 2024 recap. Just off the bat, we did go 10-6 in the money line, which I will take in Week 1. Some Week 1s, I'm 7-9. Last year, I was 9-7. So 10-6, I will take. And we actually had a winning week in best bets. I went 3 for 5 in best bets. Could have went 4 for 5. I got the hook with Miami, unfortunately. And for the record, this week's Brandon's World Best Bets, which will of course come out on Thursday. I already made my picks at midnight Eastern last night. I tried to get some good numbers on that. When the spreads came out early, and as I'll talk about on Thursday, week 2, you want to try to pick the teams that you think, will bounce back from either a week 1 performance or bet against the teams that you thought quite over their skis in week 1. So we'll start with Kansas City, Baltimore. Obviously, Kansas City winning the game 27-20. Obviously, both teams went up and down the field, first try, then the game kind of settled in. Patrick Mahomes makes the one great touchdown pass to Xavier Worthy, who also, of course, scored in that rushing touchdown. We all know about the couple plays at the end of the game. Lamar Jackson misses Zay Flowers in the end zone, and then Isaiah Whiteweed's toe touches the white, which is so unfortunate because that was such a great drive by Baltimore and such a great effort by Lamar Jackson that I do feel like was wasted a little bit. A couple developments in this game was the emergence of Isaiah Likely. Now, Mark Andrews said he was healthy. And from what I saw out there, Mark Andrews was out there a lot, but not every play like Isaiah Likely. So I wonder if that was just for this game, if Baltimore wanted to go with a more heavy two tight end scheme, or we're going to see more of Isaiah Likely become that number 1 tight end over Mark Andrews, or at least be a legitimate compliment to Mark Andrews moving forward. Kansas City was Kansas City. Even with the loss of L'Jarius Sneed at Tennessee, their defense was still very good. Chris Jones was dominating against that Baltimore offensive line all night long, which that Baltimore offensive line, I think, is more of a work in progress than we all initially thought. And again, Lamar Jackson obviously played great, but the Ravens lost. And the Ravens are saying, outside of that strip fumble, and they did get a pick off Mahomes as well. We played nearly perfect. Turnover battle was even, and we still lost the game. And after Derrick Henry got a lot of the touches on the first drive, he obviously scored, the opening touchdown of the season. Derrick Henry, I think he only got 5 or so touches the rest of the ball game. And so for Baltimore, that is something that, again, offensive coordinator Todd Monken is going to have to figure out. I thought Zach Orr, the new DC, made a pretty good impression in his debut, and he should only get better as the season moves on. But for Baltimore, in my opinion, this is the issue here is, can they defeat Kansas City? Can they get those demons out of their head? Then obviously the Brazil game. My Philadelphia Eagles defeating the Green Bay Packers 34-29. And we all know about the Jordan Love injury, and it's unfortunate. No, that was not a dirty play by Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter was on the ground, yes, but he was trying to get a man on the ground. He was not purposely diving at his knee while he was in the pocket or anything like that. By the way, I thought even, before Jordan Love got hurt, Jordan Love did not have a good game. He was missing receivers left and right. There was one throw where he had Jayan Reed, who knew how fast he was really, it was really the Jair Reed versus Saquon Barkley game. There was a play where Jordan Love missed him completely wide open over the middle where he just dirted the ball. Jalen Hurts had the one bad interception. The second interception, if you go back and watch Brian Baldigger's breakdown of it, A.J. Brown really slips. It wasn't really on Jalen Hurts. I was really encouraged by what I saw from my team on the offense side of the ball. The answers to the blitz, getting the ball out quick, being committed to the run, running the 21 personnel with Saquon Barkley and Will Shipley, or Shipley and Gainwell together in the backfield, going a little more under center, mixing up the personnel, just not exclusively 93% shotgun like the Eagles were a year ago. And obviously the more motion, Jalen Hurts was very good with motion in the offense. And so there's a lot of encouraging signs to me on the offense side of the ball. Defensively, obviously not great. I think the pass rush, on both teams was slipping because of that awful turf on the soccer field. I thought Quinion Mitchell really stood out, though. I think he's going to be a really good rookie for Philly. And obviously, as I talked about before, with all the situations going down in Brazil, um, you know, I just wanted the Eagles to win that game, get out of there. Did not matter the result, and they did so. I picked Philadelphia, obviously, and real quick on Kansas City, I forgot to mention that if you did not see my picks on Thursday, I picked Kansas City. I picked them to cover. They did cover -3. Now we have Arizona Buffalo. I picked Arizona plus 6.5. I did win that bet by half a point. Boy, was I feeling myself in the first half. Arizona was dominating Buffalo 17-3. I picked Arizona to win the game outright. You guys know I think the Cardinals could be a sneaky team going into the season. You guys know I think Buffalo takes a little bit of regression. Josh Allen, though, made that offense go, made a lot of plays with his feet, made a lot of plays with his arm. And we did add the first kickoff return in this game. DJ Dallas returned it in the end zone for Arizona at that time to pretty much solidify the cover. Um, just real quickly here, my thoughts on the new kickoff is I think if the NFL puts it at the 35-yard line, I think it will be okay. I like the new kickoff. I like the new design of it. You can see that when teams do take it out, it is working. You are getting more returns. It's just the difference between, where the average starting field position last year was in the 26 and the 30-yard line to coaches is not a big difference. I thought Green Bay, did some squibs that I thought did a really good job. I think, Buffalo did some as well. So did Arizona. If you really squib it and you hit it in that landing zone, I think that's the perfect way for kickers to approach the new kickoff. How about this? I said don't trust Cincinnati as a big favorite. We know the Bengals always start off slow. We know the developments now with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and their contract situation and their injury status. Cincinnati just looked like a team that didn't have training camp. And New England is one of those week 1 surprise upset teams. We know it happens every year. They play good defense. They run the ball. Jacoby Brissett did not turn the football over. New England got that incredible strip of the tight end at the goal line, which, really, if you look at it, is the difference in the ball game. I thought Cincinnati, a lot like week 1, the past few years, sort of got their mojo together in the second half. They go to Kansas City. If the line was a touchdown, I'd probably take Cincinnati plus the points. Not sure about 5.5, though I think the Bengals will give Kansas City a better game than people think. I think people are ready to write off the Bengals. And Gerard Mayo is an interesting home debut here against Seattle. New head coach Mike McDonald. We know Seattle always does good going from the West to the East Coast. Pittsburgh and Atlanta. Obviously, Arthur Smith's return to Atlanta. Justin Fields is from that area. This was a field goal fest. Pittsburgh kicked 6 field goals. Justin Fields ran around a lot, protected the football, and Pittsburgh's defense got after Kirk Cousins, who in his debut in Atlanta did not look great. He looked like a guy still recovering from his torn ACL or excuse me, his torn Achilles. And I said this about Atlanta going into the year. I said they're going to lose to Pittsburgh week 1, and I knew it, and I should have taken Pittsburgh plus the points, though I didn't know who the quarterback was. It shouldn't have mattered when betting, but it does matter when betting. Um, I said Atlanta's going to start 0-3, and they're still going to win the NFC South, and I am sticking to that prediction. Miami and Jacksonville. My takeaway from this game is Miami wins it 20-17. I was really impressed by Jacksonville's defense, and we all know the situation that occurred with Tyreek Hill outside, and watching the body cam video of that was absolutely disturbing. Credit to Tyreek Hill for focusing enough, for getting that long pass from Tua Tagovailoa and taking it all the way to the distance for a touchdown, which turned out to be the difference in the game. Again, I bet Miami minus 3.5, missed it by half a point. Dolphins also missed a field goal in this game, which would have allowed them to cover. I thought Jacksonville, looked okay. Doug Peterson way aggressive there, in a tie game, 4th and 1 in his own territory. Doug, it sometimes is okay to punt at your own 30-yard line to go for it on 4th and 1. I thought at that point in the game was a little bit too aggressive, and we'll see if Jacksonville can bounce back. There's obviously big expectations there. They have the Browns at home. Spoiler alert, they're favored by 3.5, and I already put my bet in on Jacksonville. Houston, Indianapolis. This was a very entertaining game. Anthony Richardson only completed 9 passes, but one of those included that bomb to Alec Pierce falling away. He had over 200 yards on those 9 passes. Houston just pounded the ball with Joe Mixon. They took Indianapolis's will in the second half. Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, they really did spread that ball around in Houston. CJ Stroud does not look like he's in a year 2 slump yet. The Colts competed their asses off. Anthony Richardson, Shane Steichen. That offense was very fun to watch. The defense was getting some pressure on Stroud. It's what I expected. Houston covered by 2, which again is about right. The spread was 2.5. How about the Bears? Will Levis does not look like an NFL quarterback. Now, I picked Chicago to win, cover the 4.5. I was very nervous. I thought I was going to get Miami and miss Chicago. Obviously, Will Levis turned into Will Levis, made a couple bad mistakes, including that awful pick six. Chicago's defense woke up in the second half. Now, Caleb Williams, he obviously was not great. It was a very rocky debut. He took a couple really bad sacks. I think he's already learning the game speed of real NFL speed compared to preseason, which I think this experience for Chicago was honestly one of the best things that could happen to them because they played poor, but their special teams and defense stepped up and they still won the game. And they came back down 17-0 and won the game 24-17. I think that's a good outlook for Chicago moving forward, especially if Green Bay's can have Malik Willis or, we'll see if they bring in Ryan Tannehill as of this recording Tuesday morning. But I think the Bears are in a good spot. I think Caleb Williams is only going to get better. He missed Keenan Allen down the sideline wide open for a touchdown. Missed Keenan Allen in the end zone. Keenan Allen just dropped the ball. So, Caleb's numbers could have looked a lot better. I'm not concerned. I should have bet the Vikings. Again, I said this could be a week 1 trap game, but I should have went with my gut. The Giants are awful. Daniel Jones is awful. I think they're going to be worse than New England this year. Sam Darnold, I said he could be this year's Geno Smith. He could be this year's Baker Mayfield. He performs well. We'll see how the Vikings do next week against the Niners defense, which, of course, Kirk Cousins carved up last year on a Monday night. The Panthers. Again, I went into this season, Dave Canales, a little bit optimistic about Carolina and Bryce Young's future, and Mark Schlereth, who is on the new FS1 show, The Breakfast Ball, which we're going to talk about actually in the next segment, FS1's new era, said Bryce Young is not an NFL quarterback. And again, I don't think the Saints are going to be very good. That was a shocker, though, 47-10. They laid the wood on Carolina. I don't think it means anything, though, for the Saints' long-term outlook. And then you have Chargers Raiders. We had Jim Harbaugh's debut. The Chargers win the game 22-10. Obviously, it was a lot of ground and pound. Antonio Pierce, 4th and 1, down 6, 7 minutes to play at the Charger 43-yard line. Does what a defensive coach decides to do and punts the football. Wrong decision at that time. J.K. Dobbins breaks away, and you really saw J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, that Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh vision, and this is why they drafted Joe Alt. They still got Wayne McContry. They have Josh Palmer. The Chargers are not going to be an air-it-out team, even with Justin Herbert. They are going to be a ground-and-pound, play-action football team, run the ball, play good defense. And for Vegas, it's going to be, most of the same thing. Gardner Minshew not turn the football over. But in the end, with those weapons, and we talked about how great of weapons the Las Vegas Raiders have, then we put up 10 points against a rebuilding Charger team has to feel disappointing. Seattle, they barely covered the 5.5. They win 26-20. Denver got two safeties in this game, which was really weird the way the scoring went. They got three field goals, they got two safeties, and they obviously got the one touchdown at the end. Bo Nix looked a little rattled week one. Mike McDonald and that Seattle defense definitely came to play. Bo Nix in his home debut next week is going to go against another very good defensive minded head coach, Mike Tomlin. But again, it's in Mile High. It's early in the year. That's a very interesting game. And I still don't know how to feel about Seattle. I mean, look, in the second half, Kenneth Walker took over. DK Metcalf got involved. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to take another step up in year two. I just think they're in a really hard division, and I don't trust Geno Smith long term. I was wrong on the Commanders. I obviously took them plus 3.5. Now, with the now cut, Katie York makes a couple of those field goals. Maybe this is a different game, but I thought Dan Quinn and that defense, being new, would show something different. And Baker Mayfield without Dave Canales could struggle in this game. I was wrong. Tampa just exploded. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, all the targets, Rashad White out of the backfield. They had their way. Todd Bowles put a lot of pressure on Gene Daniels, who did run around. He did make some plays. But at the end of the day, again, defensive coaches against rookie quarterbacks week one. It was not good for Gene Daniels and the Commanders, who their defense is still a mess. And you guys all may be right. I may have been too high on the Commanders. I'm not going to say that right now, though. Again, not going to overreact week one. Browns looked terrible. Dallas looked great. I already talked about Dak Prescott getting that contract extension. I was shocked by it. I already talked about the Deshaun Watson incident. He's not an NFL quarterback anymore. Him and Stefanski's system has never worked. Browns looked out of sync. David Njoku looked hurt. And, I texted a buddy this yesterday. For Browns fans, it's unfortunate that Deshaun Watson is in the conversation of Will Levis, Daniel Jones, and Bryce Young for the four worst quarterbacks in the National Football League. That's the bottom line. Micah Parsons really had a good game. New defensive coordinator, Mike Zimmer's system. Again, still don't think Dallas is great. They do this every year. They stomped the Giants last year 40-0 week one. What kind of the end of the season turned out. I don't think this was a statement win for Dallas. I think they're going to beat the Saints next week, and then their first real test will be at home week 3 against the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the Rams Lions game, I thought the Rams did what the Browns didn't do, and that was play well without their offensive lineman in the backfield. Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp are just in sync, even without Puka Nacua. Just Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp took that game over, and the Rams defense played very well without Aaron Donald, and they were getting a pass rush, Jared Verse, Kobe Turner in there. It was obviously a real grinded out game for the Lions, who then in overtime just relied on that offensive line. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, the 1-2 combo ran them right down the field. The Rams, you could tell they were tired. Chris Collinsworth even mentioned it on the broadcast that, they were exhausted. They hadn't played in preseason. Jared Goff just drives them right down the field. The Lions took their life away. And the Lions, again, they didn't play great. It wasn't the best game by Jared Goff by any means, but they won the game. And now they have another playoff rematch week 2 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home. And I think the Lions are going to play better. I do love the addition, if you will, of Jameson Williams to the offense. I thought Ben Johnson used him very well. And I think that for the Rams, again, you can take a lot of good from this game. I think they're going to get everything they can handle from Arizona. We now know Puka Nacua is out the first 4 games of the season, but I think they'll be able to survive that injury. And then San Francisco did what they seemingly always do in week 1. Did not matter if they did not have Christian McCaffrey. They just took, the Jets to the woodshed. And Aaron Rodgers did not look bad in his debut. I thought at times he looked really comfortable. I thought at times he was a little skittish in the pocket. I think the Jets are going to bounce back next week and defeat Tennessee. I think this is the hardest game in the Jets' schedule by far. And I just think that they got in a really bad spot. You got San Francisco week 1, Aaron Rodgers, first game back. San Francisco heard the noise all week about, not having Ayuk, who missed a touchdown, dropped it wide open in the end zone, not having Trent Williams. They didn't have Christian McCaffrey. And I think that they made a statement that they are not going to drop off like some pundits predicted. They are here to stay. So a quick recap of week 1. I hit my Kansas City bet -3. I hit Arizona +6.5. I hit Chicago -4.5. In retrospect, I'm glad I did not hit Miami -3.5 because the Washington game would have really pissed me off. Again, I should have replaced Washington with Minnesota, and I should have taken Pittsburgh actually probably instead of Miami, but I was confident about Miami's ability to put up points against a bad Jaguars defense. I thought week 1, Tua Tagovailoa and Miami would put on a show, and obviously that was not the case. Money line wise, I started out really well in the money line. I missed the Arizona game. I missed the Cincinnati game. So obviously everybody missed that game. I missed Carolina. Obviously, just a bad pick by me. But I went with the rookies in the 4 o'clock window. Denver, Washington. That was a bad pick by me, admittedly. And I went with the Browns over Dallas. I thought it was going to be a low-scoring defensive game. And obviously, the Cowboys defense came to play. Browns defense did not. Last note, I did not love Tom Brady in the booth. I thought, Greg Olsen, Joe Davis did a great job in the Pittsburgh Atlanta game. I thought Tom Brady, you could tell he was a rookie, and you could tell he was a guy trying to get 10% ownership in the Las Vegas Raiders because he looked uncomfortable. He looked like he did not want to criticize players. He looked like he did not want to criticize officials. And Fox, to me, is going to have to make a decision at the end of this year. If Brady is like this the whole year, he does not deserve to be the #1 broadcaster. And I get it. He's the GOAT. You can't really have the GOAT as the #2 or #3 broadcaster. But he's not the GOAT at broadcasting. And I think, Terry Bradshaw is getting old for Fox. We've seen Bradshaw and his highlight reel and all that. I think, obviously they probably have to redo his contract at that point. But Brady, to me right now, just seems like he'd be a lot better as a studio host type kind of guy than an actual analyst. And that's my thoughts on the NFL in week 1. Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.